we are at the top of the hour into our, and we have come from young Corey through to Granville Town, across to the Spanish Florida, the Seminole Reservations, back to locations in London, Whitehall, Plymouth. It's amazing how these stories, and even the Caribbean, it's amazing. We went up to Nova Scotia. It's amazing how the story of people of African descent for over 5+ centuries have spanned the continent, living very inspiring stories of folks seeking, now we call them greener pastures, but back then people were seeking their freedom, or at least trying to get self-determination, the option for self-determination. And I think those stories seem to continue to inspire, especially when it's told from within the community. Freetown seems to hold a lot of those connections to a lot of these stories in very interesting ways, and this comes out as we go throughout the journey. And we've always wondered, in this effort to transform Freetown, is there an opportunity for some markers around this story to be held there, just to either also be a place where others can come and start that journey? So Akindele and I and others have toyed with that, and this last session is about that. And we will start off with Akindele's introduction, and I will share what others are doing in this area, and hope we will conclude with very actionable items.
Hello, everyone. I mean, to be honest, it's hard to leave the previous session and the questions and the answers, because I'm sure all of us here can go on and on and on about that all day. But obviously for the sake of time, I think as Adrian mentioned, one of the main actionable points that we as AfricanCurator, which is one of the organizers of this symposium, aims to address this as far as the next step, move, is to sort of see how we can mark this one journey, how we can make this one journey available, so that people can interact with it. I think it's one thing to sort of have museums, schools, learning spaces where children are able to go and study these subjects in school. But we also need to have something available for communities, things that are accessible outside of those traditional spaces. And I think for us, that's where markers come in. So one of the ventures that we've taken on at AfricanCurator is to install these markers. And for the most part, what we've sort of had in mind have been along or within the context of this one journey. They've been related to, different aspects of the conversations that we've had over these last two symposiums. And what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and show an example of the most recent marker that we did, which was for Zion Methodist Church in Freetown. For those who may not know about Zion Methodist Church, it was one of the congregations that came along with the 1792 settlers that came from Nova Scotia to Freetown. Cato Perkins, and and a few others were some of the leaders of that congregation. It was a Methodist congregation, but it was a Methodist sect that was led by, or sort of followed, the Countess of Huntingdonian sect of Methodism. So it was, the church itself was, or the congregation rather, gathered at a meeting house on Wilberforce Street, starting, in 1792. And for 230 years, as old as Freetown itself, that congregation has remained in the same place for all of this time. And so I would argue that most, or some, consider Zion to be the oldest church in Freetown, or Sierra Leone, however you look at it. So along with Freetown celebrating its 230th year, starting from the 1792 mark, Zion also this year commemorated that milestone as well. So there were several events and celebrations that was done in Sierra Leone and also online as well to commemorate that. One of the things that the Zion 230 committee commissioned or wanted to do was to have a marker placed in front of the church. So AfricanCurator worked with that committee, and we already had some level of knowledge, I guess, or information on the history itself. But obviously we spent some time doing further research. Essentially, we worked with the church committee, the 230 committee, to put together a marker, a historical marker in front of the church. I wouldn't say it's something that's common in Sierra Leone, the marker culture, I guess, in a sense. We do have some statutes and different plaques here and there, but as far as something in that format is something that I think that we're sort of getting used to, I guess. So we developed the marker from scratch. We worked with our team in Freetown to develop the base of the marker, to do the design as well. And these are just photos just showing the experience of that. And we wanted to, our intention was to do something that was going to be permanent. So we wanted to make sure that we had a few engineers on the team, designers as well, to make sure that we achieved that. And from all the work that was done, it took about a few months. We were able to get the marker installed and ready for March, for the end of March, which actually happened in time for the Freetown 230 celebrations as well. And this is a picture of the marker. We also have 3 of the church members. And just to note that some of the families within the congregation they've been there for as long as the congregation has been in existence. this is the mayor of Freetown, and the church leaders unveiling the marker. I believe that was April 10th. And just a brief notes about the marker itself. We wanted to include as much information as possible, not just about Zion Church, but also about the area as well. Interestingly, while we were doing some other research for the Zion 230 committee, we came across, I'll actually give that credit to Adrian, but he was able to find a picture that you see there of Reverend Anthony Elliott, who was, I believe he was a young boy when the settlers came over in 1792. And he became one of, I would say, one of the longest serving church leaders of Zion. So we came across that photo, thanks to Adrian, and I believe it's probably the only actual photo or painting or whatnot of a settler from that period. And it was actually found in a book that was an excerpt or a portion of the book was written by his son, who was also one of the church leaders of Zion as well. So we did get a lot of information from that. We included some information about the ships, the 15 ships or 16 ships that came over from Halifax. We included some information about some of the original trustees of the church, which included the settlers. And so it was definitely an interesting, and I'm sure Adrian would want to chime in on the discovery of that photo when he comes in. But it was a very interesting experience, and really, I think a refreshing one as well. Just knowing that something like this is available. I mean, we have a national museum, and I believe other plans are on the way for similar museums as well. But I think it's important for us to sort of have these markers, these standalone markers, not just in Freetown, but along this one journey that we've all been talking about. Because I think beyond just us coming to meet and talk, I think it's important for travelers, for visitors, for community members to also understand that history as well, without necessarily having to, physically go to those places. But I'll stop here and I'll pass it on to Adrian.
Thank you, Akindele. So we are not this work of trying to set down markers somewhere as part of this story. It's been done in very interesting ways. We were able to find a number of these initiatives across different communities, and we're hoping that as we go along this journey, there'll be synergies and in these different efforts. I would highlight a few, and we have, in no particular order, we have with us Iyamide Lewis Corker in California, who's part of the Creole Heritage Organization. They have been interested, they have been looking at the liberated Africans and the 17 nations, as we know them in Freetown, who were part of the slaves, who were part of the Africans who were freed from captured ships and resettled in Freetown. The process of that involved registration or holding at some point in what was called the King's Yard. This is actually one of the heritage sites currently in Sierra Leone, and they are looking to put markers on those different locations. And one that's actually forgotten is what we all know now as Kisi Yard. It was actually formerly King's Yard where this was happening, and they're looking to do that. Another group in Canada, Creole Heritage Association, they have planted a tree for David George. David George is at the focus of the Baptist story in the African American story. Interestingly, David George was part of an initial church in the Carolinas and Georgia, and also he established one in Canada, but that was burnt down, and it's now part of Canada's own history of the first race riots. He made the journey with as a Black loyalist to Sierra Leone, and he established a church that's on Regent Road to this day. That church too was partially burnt during the Rebel War. But the point is, the most iconic person, or the original Baptist preacher in the Baptist story, has a place in Freetown where a marker could be established. The Creole Descendants Union, one of the largest of all the diaspora organizations, have a space in York Village in Freetown where they're developing a heritage space. So we hope and expect one day there will be markers that will tell some of those stories. The New Brunswick Black History Society is trying to bring attention to a particular Black loyalist. His name was Richard Francophone Wheeler. His story is very inspiring, and the New Brunswick folks are looking to do a monument of sorts. We're hoping, again, he also was somebody who was among the Black loyalists who left for Freetown. And today we got a list of some of the names of the Black loyalists, thanks to the work by Iyamide and Dr. Silver. We know that if we go down that road, we will find some interesting connections and collaborations. Canada was the Canadian provincial government in Nova Scotia and the Blacks associations had managed to put up a Black Loyalist Heritage Center, where on the walls of that center, nicely inscribed, are all the names of all these African Americans who had left during the independence war to Nova Scotia. Again, what most people don't know is that was not the only migration of Blacks to Atlantic Canada. There was even a second 10 years after, of Blacks who, after the War of 1812, some went to Trinidad, Bermuda, Barbados, and some did go back up to, and some went to Canada. Their stories, there's an opportunity there for their stories to connection. As Akindele said, the Congregation of Zion did very rich celebration. They connected with their Huntingdonian roots, and it was the Bishop of the Huntingdon was part of the celebration, and he gave a very inspiring information that the Huntingdonians have about the early settlers in Sierra Leone and what they did. The actual land of that, where Zion Church stood, was given by one of the settlers at her deathbed, Mary Ash, and a group of the Sierra Leoneans from the Creole Heritage Society, the church, this year put up a plaque in her honor. The Sierra Leone Museum and the Monument Relic Societies have been managing what we call the heritage sites. But those of us who, when you start to appreciate this social history, you could tell that it was almost focused on the European version of our stories. And we believe there is a whole lot more areas that can be marked when telling this story. The most important thing they've done recently was through some support with UK and US organizations to preservation work in Fons Island. And I think that has allowed for groups of people to be visiting that, just like how Vida Wood said, she made that visit. The Creative Union, they were originally responsible for having the statue of Thomas Peter that stands right now in front of Cathedral Church, overlooking the government wharf. They are all working on a Creole museum in Moritown. But just a quick digress. Iyamide, what's the definition of wharf again? You had told me the last time.
What was that?
The definition of wharf. Wharf is spelled.
Warehouse at riverfront.
Yeah, warehouse at riverfront. So there is a statue of Thomas Peters, who's credited with a lot of the petitions and work done at the warehouse, the government warehouse at the riverfront. Next is, you can tell by the time you listen to what we learned today, it was clear that AfricanCurator was looking to do something for Granville Town. But just from listening to the presentation today, we could not do justice if we do not do something at the same time for Yanga Kori, Belize, Lamilia, and even Abraham Elliot Griffith. Those folks, you had to connect those stories if you were to ever mark that that period in our history. I also would want to bring 3 more interesting ones, and the third one actually sets the stage for the next symposium in September. It's when the first is, if Amadou Marcel is still on, he might speak a bit to it. The Golo Geechee folks of the South Carolina had made a request to the mayor and about a request. Yeah, the Golo Geechee folks, they have their own freedom park in Mitchellville, and it's a very important part in their story. And they would like to have from the foothills of the old Yagala, any stone that they could put as the centerpiece of their historic park. And so that project has been sailed between Amadou Masali, myself, and others to see how this historic connection can be made. Then I'd like to take you guys to another interesting marker. And to show that, I have to take you to Charleston, where the International African Museum was made in honor of those that landed on that wharf there, to be shipped to the or cattle herded to the Southern America. They have and to mark this movement of enslaved people from there to Charleston, they've effectively designed and built a museum. building is actually almost fully completed, and the lower ground, you had seen like a wading pool. When you look through that wading pool, you're actually going to see mirage or images of people shackled in the boats as they were in going across the Middle Passage. What's interesting is the mayor of Freetown was invited to be part of that that celebration, and in that discussion, the opportunity came for a twin project to happen. And on the other side in Freetown, the opportunity exists for this the oldest building in the Freetown City Council, which was formerly part of the Freetown City Council, to be reimagined as a heritage history connection space, much like what you saw in Charleston. In the backdrop there, the blue building is the newest Freetown City Council building now. They moved from this old complex to the new high-rise that you see on the screen. And so this complex there's an opportunity for this complex to be reimagined as a twin complex to the one in Charleston. So that project, that aspect of the project is being evolved. As you can see to date, we have done the African American and Canadian stories to Freetown in the first symposium. We've managed to explore the resistance and also of all the different groups, realizing they're all connected. And we've focused on the European story. I mean, there are others. Now we know in September we'll have the opportunity to focus on the Caribbean story, and we're starting with the Jamaican Maroons and others in the Caribbean nations. And we will invite as much of people from those different nations to be part of that one. And what actually is happening before that, which is in planning, it will happen. The planning is happening, is something that actually sets the stage for that. There is an effort for African and Caribbean connection through festivals. And the very first one is going to be held in Sierra Leone in December. It's been done by Caribbeans, Sierra Leoneans, and African Americans. And to date, they've been able to secure a special flight on January 27th, returning, on December 27th, returning January 2nd. What's so important is they have put together not only a festival of music and culture, but one of heritage, to give the opportunity for Caribbeans who will be participating in this to go explore as much as much of the heritage in Sierra Leone. And I will play I'll play a video of that initiative next.
Explore Sierra Leone. Travel through the Sierra Leone River and dive into the significant history of Bon's Island, once a British trade center from where tens of thousands of enslaved Sierra Leoneans were exiled into North America and the West Indies. The ruins on Bon's Island still stand as a testament to the inhumane and gruesome past of the transatlantic slave trade era. Learn about the history firsthand from an historian. We will perform a symbolic gesture as a group and witness a short cultural display, followed by a professional photoshoot before transferring back to the city of Freetown. Join us on our city tour to explore Freetown and its historical corners and landmarks like the famous cotton tree and the old Funabe College. Stop at the National Museum and Peace Museum and explore Big Market and more. Expect some live entertainment and interesting insights too, and top up the city experience with a view from Leicester Peak. We will round up this unforgettable experience with a short stopover at the I Love Salone installation at Lumley Beach for a group photo session. Experience all this and much more this December at the Afro-Caribbean Festival live in Sierra Leone. See you there.
So I guess what we are saying is the interests is mounting on all fronts, and Sierra Leone, and specifically capital, has the opportunity to hold a lot of the different markers, and using a system of QR codes, the connection we're trying to make here, these during this symposium, can very well be made easily by other generations. And once it's done, younger folks will be able to make these connections in a very fluid way. And we hope that what we're doing, it's all going to be, what we're doing here today are all going to be the contents that they will be able to watch in very fluid ways through their phones as they're connecting through these different trail markers. And so we've put together a process by which we can evolve these markers over time and make these rich contents all interconnect. And for that, I will pass it over again to Akindele.
Hello again, everyone. And I mean, it's I think it's all preservation, essentially. And I think parts of telling the story is making sure that once it's being told, once it has been told, it can be preserved, not just by us, but by the next generations, in whatever way they see fit, which might be in different ways than we are trying to preserve it now. So definitely the historical markers are part of our focus when it comes to preservation efforts. We have developed a system, and it was something that we put into works during the process of creating the Zion marker. So we're very confident with our team that we can research, design, create, and install markers similar to the one that I showed earlier, that was installed in front of Zion. Another part of AfricanCurator is, that we're trying to, we also integrate technology as well. And the physical markers is going to be one thing, obviously, and I think I had a slight discussion with Miss Yamide Thomas about this earlier. You have to be there to see it, the actual marker itself. However, we are integrating technology, and we're looking into different options where you are able to interact or access the marker from somewhere else. You don't have to be in Sierra Leone. You don't have to be in Oklahoma, and as far as the Black Seminoles, you don't have to be in, it would be good to be there, obviously, but for AfricanCurator, our philosophy is all about access. It's about making the information, the historical data, the conversations, all of that accessible. And then everyone else can take it from there. Whether it's something that helps with your personal research or your genealogy research, or just whatever it is that it helps with. But it's very important that access is key, because right now a lot of the information out there, a lot of the historical data out there, it's only accessible within academia. You really have to be into this to not only know where to access some of these information, but to just have the will or the interest to do so. So we do hope to integrate that technology aspect to it. We've already started doing that by putting in QR codes, and the marker in front of Zion has that. So it has a QR code in the marker. So anyone that goes to the marker in front of Zion in Freetown, you can just scan your phone and it will take you to the actual Zion 230 website that has all the historical information about that. So it's something that, I mean, it's a start, but we hope to evolve it as we go along. The markers themselves, the panels may become more technology based as we go along. The virtual platform that the QR code takes you to may become more, more inclusive of the One Journey and all the other different parts of it than just taking you to one specific thing. So it's a journey for us as well. And this is just a snapshot of the One Journey, essentially. This is from slavevoyages.com. But this is essentially the journey, and it's over time. It's over the last several hundreds of years. It's a journey of connected history, shared heritage, stories of folks like Anthony Elliott, Griffith, Thomas Peters. I mean, you can go on and on and on. And it's not just a Creole story or Timini story or Sierra Leonean story or even a Black Seminole story. It's an African story, essentially. And it's a story that ultimately several of us can own a part of it, but know that all these different parts make up a whole piece. And this is just a way to visit AfricanCurator at AfricanCurator.com just to see some of our works. We've done a few children's books in the past as well. So you kind of see, bits and pieces on those. But I think our main focus for the near future, at least, is going to be to see how best we can evolve this One Journey activity, and not just by ourselves, but in partnership with every one that's participated so far. So it's not just an African curator thing. It's essentially something that we all have a part to play in terms of our own individual or group interests that we bring to it. So I'll stop there because I can go on and on and on. So I'll stop there and pass it over to Adrian. And I know that during the Q&A session, there was one or two questions that may not have been answered. So I don't know, Adrian, do you think we have some time to do those?
Yeah, actually 15 minutes beyond the scheduled time. So if anybody stays on, it's because of they're very interested and we're here. Yeah, and we're very happy to answer the question. I guess any question asked, any answer provided, you can see that it's not going to be lost here. We have a vision, collaborating with all of you to make it accessible to the younger folks. So if if anybody has questions, you can go ahead. We thank those who've gone through the whole process of the presentation, the sessions. Thank you for those who've contributed. I want to recognize the Curator.com books, central to this session, Boutique folks, and the Zion 230 folks, and Akindele and myself. We've been able to forge collaboration over this set of activities, and I believe we'll continue to do that. If you're still on, feel free to ask questions, and we'll play a very final video that'll give you a feel of where we're going next to the Caribbean. Okay. Okay. Any questions?
comments. Maybe questions. Let me put my hand down. On your list of markers,
Yes.
was there any for the UK as such? I'm trying to think.
We had not. This is not a complete list. In fact, after you and I spoke, I believe you had the other half of where of all the markers that are needed especially in the UK. I believe you've been collecting that just by your work in a natural way. So I expect we'll have that conversation.
And also I think I saw from Akindele put up something, research that funding is one thing. I don't know if that, your slide that you had, which said research, check, and then I think the last one was installation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Akindele?
Yes.
So was that just sort of mapping out the process of how you get from start to finish? Because the last one was installation.
Yes, for the most part. So we are capable of doing each of those steps. Now the order may be a little different based on the marker, but yes.
Well, fundraising should be there somewhere, I think, unless you because some of these, although the markers, obviously part of the reason you're fundraising for this is towards that. But I mean, if you have anything there telling people the process, I think you might have to drop in a line about, you need to fundraise for these things. But definitely. Plaques and things, they still need to fundraise. I'm trying to think. The other thing I wanted to say, I mean, I wasn't here at the start, but I'm sure the symposium was just as good as the first one you had. And I believe, I can't remember how many people the first one had, but you had quite a lot of people in the first one. So I was a bit disappointed when I saw the numbers here. And I think one thing you should do for the next one is make sure you email, because you are advertising it on Eventbrite, and have everybody's email who joins the first one, presumably. One thing would be to have emailed them, with a customized Eventbrite email telling them about this one.
We actually
did that?
Yeah, we did that.
You did that?
We did that. So we have not lost anybody who has participated. Would always have the information about the next one. As to attend or not, I think it'll be depending on what the other activities are.
Well, it was really sunny in London today, so one or two people I know said they were going to be out in the sun. It's not often we see the sun here at this time, so but the recording, you'll have the recording. How soon will the recording be on you? Well, I don't want to question.
Yes, in fact, I also wanted to add that for the first symposium, I think the Freetown 2:30 events were also happening at that same time as well. So that kind of gave, it kind of added a lot of edge to that.
Enthusiasm.
So I think as you said, again, a lot of what we try to do, especially with access being a focus, is to the technology aspect of things. So recordings, making those recordings available, like we did with the first symposium. And then, we are also trying to see, maybe it might be after this symposium, to see how we can even, how we can disseminate it even more beyond just the website itself. So I mean, I think it obviously it's great having folks come here live for that live experience, which is always, I mean, like the first one, it was always a great experience. But definitely the hope is to have it be accessible even beyond today.
Yeah, and I think the next one is going to be quite big, and why? It's because the actual African Caribbean festival that's going to be happening in Freetown part of that process is actually a program. They're going to be creating a monument that connects all the possible histories or icon or milestone histories of the different Caribbean nations to Freetown. So that's also part of that event, and there will be an opening. The final day is actually a heritage. It's a memorial monument heritage day to unveil that at one. So we believe we'll be making pretty much the final connection to the Caribbeans in the next symposium. And
somebody is putting in the chat.
Yes, Iyamide Kaka wants to find out. This is mentioned from the chat that this is an excellent idea to preserve our Creole cultural heritage, but funding is really important before installing the markers. Well, yes, fundraising is going to be part of it. Akindele and I experimented with the different forms of markers. The ones that go on the wall. We actually experimented with ones that businesses could put temporarily in front of their location. And even the permanent ones. So we've made prototypes of all those. So we've also put forms on the AfricanCurator site. So if anybody is interested, we can give them an estimate of what it will cost, and that organization can use that to go fundraise.
I mean, over here in England, they have two bodies, but I think the process, well, we think there's, you know, the blue markers I showed you, they're done by English Heritage. But I think I'm pretty sure it's quite a laborious process to convince them that this person lived here and deserves a marker. But parallel to that, there's one that a black guy does. That's called something Nubian Jack. So Google that. He does, you know, where for heroes that aren't recognized your everyday sort of by the British. He does, you know, the unusual markers as well. He and I we've never been in touch, but I know that you know, he puts plaques as well. You know, I just think, you know, I was just thinking to myself, the wharf, what is it, where the Black Port took off from initially, Deptford, you know, that's they should recognize something about the Black Port, or, you know, the Exodus, you know, because it has such a historic, you know, unique historic context of London, you know. And I was surprised well, I wasn't surprised that when they were doing the departures thing, she didn't know anything about it. You know, the departures exhibition, the curator knew nothing about it, about the Black. And so if a curator, you know, an exhibition curator doing departures or emigration from London doesn't know anything about it, you know, unless, you know, who would, sort of thing, unless we that are interested in Creole history and the impact and all that. But anyway, good idea for markers.
I think that's it. If we don't tell our stories, no one will understand. And I think I'm sort of personally beyond, you know, sort of expecting, even the expectation that others will. I think I'm at a point where it's, you know, what can I, you know, how can I contribute towards telling our story?
Yeah.
And however little that might be, or you know, it's just a matter of we have to take that responsibility. And I think when it comes down to fundraising, I'm never a fundraising person. I stay away from that. But
you're the only one.
yeah, but it is key, and I think the community, the ownership. I think it's about ownership. It's about knowing that knowing the value of what having this could be, because we don't have a lot of things, whether it's in Freetown, Sierra Leone, or South Carolina. There's a lot of tug and war in terms of claiming ownership on our history, whether it's the physical history or whatnot. But we have to place historical value ourselves. on the things that, you know, we believe tell our stories. If not, those things are just going to go to the wayside, and we will see a migration of those things going back into those buildings and academia and places that the community cannot access. So if we're able to sort of open that up and show the value to say, if whatever story it is, whatever parts of the story it is, if whatever group has an interest in that part, I mean, each of those groups have their communities. So if there's a marker being raised that speaks to that interest of that group and is in a location that the group has identified as having historic value, then that community can then come together and, you know, raise up the funds needed to install that marker. And we at AfricanCurator, we, you know, again, we've sort of developed our system of making sure that that marker is created. We have a standard that we go by. It's, you know, we do it so that it is a standard, permanent. It's a permanent marker. It goes in the ground or it goes in the wall. It's not something that can just fall off at any time. And we try to, you know, again, the larger part of it is also trying to develop a virtual, you know, virtual environment where, along with these markers, each of them can connect together. So it's the fundraising is definitely, I think, you know, again, I don't touch that. I try not to, but I'm sure it's, you know, it's an essential part of it all. It cannot happen without it. We were able to do the Zion marker, and you know, we did what we could in getting that up and running. But you know, if we're looking at more and more markers down the road, it's, you know, we'll stop short somewhere if it's just AfricanCurator. So yeah.
That's good. Well, I do my bit. I think if everybody does a little bit, all those little bits then combine to one big, you know, showing, really. So it's a matter of getting more enthusiasm within, you know, within Sierra Leoneans, and all the other connections. And because, I mean, this history is so unique, and as you pointed out, it really does bring various, it's not just Sierra Leoneans, it's just not Creoles, it's a whole load, you know, and we really, really need to try and make those connections have an impact, you know. I mean, I only told a fraction of the story of UK and the way it's involved with the whole thing on Sierra Leone and all that, you know, and all the other places as well. Another thing I wanted to say before I go, I was impressed that the building in the museum in South Carolina, they fund, because the last time I kind of looked and I think they were still fundraising, and yet Adrian mentioned that the building is almost up and complete.
Yes, I visited the construction a year ago.
A couple of years ago. I remember Mike. Is it Michael? The guy that is Michael something. I can't. It's Melbourne Wilson. I can't remember his full name. But he appeared on one of these Zoom things some years ago, and you know, I looked up the website and all that. So it's really good to know that they've fundraised and they've actually almost built it.
So yeah, and we're hoping we follow the same model for this.
If only the Creole Museum could go up that fast. Anyway, let me not go into that one. That's to do with fundraising, and Akindele, I'd rather not do the, you know, I don't get caught up in too much fundraising myself.
Yeah, I stay away from that.
Yeah. I lobby for that enough in my day job, you know. So, you know, with the charity. Yeah. Anyway, folks, I don't know if you're rounding up. I don't know how many of us are genuinely still on.
Yeah, I'm going to send you guys off on a high note, which will tell you when we get to the Caribbean, their fusion of heritage, history, and their carnival, it's quite unique.
Who's organizing? What body is organizing?
It's a younger set of Sierra Leoneans and African Americans and Caribbeans that they're using in very innovative and ingenious ways, doing what they call bridging borders and crossing waters and bridging borders across waters.
Okay.
So they've
the website. Let me make a note of the website.
Pretty much fused the festival, and they can even AfricanCurator too will be doing an exposition during that period on icons of Sierra Leoneans and the Caribbeans.
Are you about to play a video before I go? Yeah.
Yes, and it definitely changes the tempo. It's quite different. So, folks, thank you again, and enjoy this video.
And I will be at Afro-Caribbean Festival in the beautiful Freetown, Sierra Leone.
Wait, listen. December 2022, I'll be performing in Freetown, Sierra Leone, Africa at the Afri-Caribbean Festival.
Morning. Good morning.
Hey yo, it's your boy Fimba, live and direct from St. Vincent. You don't know I'm inviting you to bring in the new year with me in Africa, Sierra Leone.
Yo, this is your boy Michael Lepanis, and this December 2022, I will be performing live at the Afro-Caribbean Festival in Sierra Leone, West Africa, in Motherland.
Hey people, it's your boy Trombone Vibes, and I'm inviting you on the 28th of December to the 2nd of January to Freetown, Sierra Leone for the Afro-Caribbean Festival.
Your girl Lafana. I want y'all to join me in Sierra Leone, West Africa. I will be performing live through the Afri-Caribbean Festival.
DJ Spider will miss it.
DJ run it again. Yeah. I turn up the fed till it turn over. I turn up the fed till it turn over.